Read file from Resources folder in Spring Boot Introduction. In Spring Boot, the Resources folder is used to store files that your application needs at runtime. These files can include text files, JSON files, XML files, CSV files, images, configuration files, templates. A very common requirement in Spring Boot is reading a file that is placed inside src main resources. For example, you may want to read a sample JSON file, a text template, an email template, static reference data, a certificate or key file, a CSV file for processing. Understanding how to read files from the Resources folder is important because Spring Boot packages these files inside the application jar or WAR, so they are not always accessed the same way as normal files from your local system. This topic helps learners understand what the Resources folder is, how Spring Boot handles resource files, how to read files properly, why getFile may fail in packaged applications, the correct ways to load resource files. This is a practical and very important Spring Boot concept. What does read file from Resources folder mean? Reading a file from the Resources folder means loading a file that is bundled inside your Spring Boot application. In simple terms, Resources folder file reading equals accessing application internal files at runtime. Example concept. src main resources data sample text means application reads content. Instead of reading from a random folder in your computer, the application reads files that are shipped with it. Why this is important? Many Spring Boot applications depend on internal files. For example, reading email templates, loading default configuration data, parsing JSON reference files, reading SQL scripts, loading certificates, loading static content. Example concept. Application starts means resource file loaded means content used in logic. This is important because resource files are part of the deployed application. Without understanding this, developers often try file paths that work locally but fail after packaging the application into a jar. What is the Resources folder in Spring Boot? In a standard Spring Boot project, the Resources folder is src main resources. Files placed here are automatically included in the application class path. Example concept. src main resources. Column application.properties, column data.text, column sample.json, column templates email.html. Spring Boot treats these files as ClassPath resources. That means they are loaded through the class loader, not necessarily through normal file system access. ClassPath resource concept. A file in src main resources becomes available in the class path when the application runs. In simple terms, ClassPath resource equals a file packaged inside the application and loaded by the JVM class loader. Example concept. src main resources sample.txt means ClassPath sample.txt. If the file is inside a folder, src main resources data sample.txt, then the class path location becomes classpath data sample.txt. This is the path you usually use while loading the resource. Common ways to read a file from Resources folder. In Spring Boot, resource files are commonly read using ClassPathResource, ResourceLoader, @value, classloader.getResourceAsStream. These methods are safer than trying to directly access the file path. Example concept. Resource file means input stream means read content using ClassPathResource. One of the most common ways is ClassPathResource. Example. Import org.springframework.core.io ClassPathResource. Import java.io.bufferedReader. Import java.io.inputStream. Import java.io.inputStreamReader. Import java.nio.charsets standard charsets. Public class file reader service. Public string read file. Throws exception. ClassPathResource resource equals new ClassPathResource data sample.txt. Input stream equals resource get input stream. Buffered reader equals new buffered reader, new input stream reader, input stream, standard charsets.utf8. String builder content equals new string builder. String line. While line equals reader.readLine isn't null. Content append line, append n. Return content to string. At. Example concept. ClassPath file means ClassPathResource, means input stream, means content. This is a very common and reliable approach. How it works. When you write new ClassPathResource data sample.txt, Spring looks for this file inside src main resources data sample. Then it opens the file as an input stream. Example flow. Resources folder means ClassPathResource, means input stream, means Java reads content. This works both in development and in packaged applications. Using getResourceAsStream. Another common way is using Java's ClassLoader directly. Example: import java.io buffered reader, import java.io input stream, import java.io input stream reader, import java.nio charset.standard charsets. Public class file reader service. Public string read file throws exception. Input stream is getClass.getClassLoader.getResourceAsStream data sample.txt. If input stream equals null, throw new runtime exception, file not found, data sample.txt. Buffered reader equals new buffered reader, new input stream reader, input stream, standard charsets.utf8. String builder content equals new string builder, string line, while line equals reader.readLine equals null, content append line, append n comma, return content to string. Example concept. Class loader means locate resource, means input stream, means read data. This is also a popular approach. Using ResourceLoader. Spring also provides ResourceLoader. Example: import org.springframework.beans.factory.annotation.outerword. Import org.springframework.core.io.resource. Import org.springframework.core.io.ResourceLoader. Import org.springframework.stereotype.service. Import java.io buffered reader. Import java.io input stream reader. Import java.nio.charset.standard charsets. At service public class file reader service. At autowired private ResourceLoader. Public string read file throws exception. Resource equals ResourceLoader.getResource classpath data sample.txt. Buffered reader equals new buffered reader, new input stream reader, resource.getInputStream, standard charsets.utf8. String builder content equals new string builder. String line, while line equals reader, read line is equal to null. Content append line, append n. Return content dot string. And example concept. ResourceLoader means ClassPathResource, means input stream, means content. This is useful when working with Spring managed beans. Using @value to load a resource. Spring can also inject a resource using @value. Example: import org.springframework.beans.factory.annotation.value. Import org.springframework.core.io.resource. Import org.springframework.stereotype.service. Import java.nio.charset.standard charsets. Service public class file reader service. @value classpath data sample text private resource. Public string read file throws exception. Byte parse bytes equals resource.getInputStream.readAllBytes. Return new string bytes, standard charsets, UTF-8. Example concept. @value injects resource means open stream, means read content. This is clean and convenient for simple cases. Reading JSON file from resources. You may also read a JSON file from the resources folder. Example: import com.fasterjackson.databind.objectmapper. Import org.springframework.core.io ClassPathResource. Import java.io input stream. Public class JSON reader service. Public myData read JSON. Throws exception. ClassPathResource resource equals new ClassPathResource data sample JSON. Input stream equals resource.getInputStream. Object mapper equals new object mapper. Return object mapper.readValue input stream myData.class. Example concept. JSON file in resources means input stream, means object mapper, means Java object. This is very useful in real Spring Boot applications. Reading file line by line. Sometimes you want to process the file line by line. Example. Import org.springframework.core.io ClassPathResource. Import java.io buffered reader. Import java.io input stream reader. Import java.io charset.standard charsets. Public class file reader service. Public void process file throws exception. ClassPathResource resource equals new ClassPathResource data sample.txt. Try. Buffered reader equals new buffered reader, new input stream reader, resource.getInputStream, standard chartsets.utf8. String line. While line equals reader.readLine equals null, system.outPrintLine is. Example concept. Input stream means buffered reader, means read one line at a time. This is useful for text files, CSV files, and logs. Why getFile can be dangerous. A common mistake is this. Resource equals new ClassPathResource data sample.txt file equals resource.getFile. This may work during local development, but it can fail after packaging the application as a jar. Why? Because inside a jar, the resource is no longer a normal file on the file system. Example concept. Local IDE run means may behave like real file. Package jar run means resource is inside jar, not normal file. So the safer approach is use getInputStream. Avoid depending on physical file access unless necessary. Best practice. The best practice in Spring Boot is read resource files using input stream, not file. Example concept. Safe approach. ClassPathResource means input stream. Risky approach. ClassPathResource means file. This ensures your code works in IDE, in jar, in Docker, in deployed environments. Example folder structure. Example project structure. SRC, main resources, application.properties, data.sample.txt, .sample.json, templates.email.template.html. If you want to read sample.txt, the path becomes new ClassPathResource data sample.txt. If you want to read email template.html, the path becomes new ClassPathResource templates email template.html. Real-world use cases. Reading files from resources folder is commonly used for email templates, SQL scripts, JSON seed data, XML configuration files, text templates, PDF or static reference content, certificates, and keys, CSV lookup files. Example concept. Application logic needs internal file means load from resources folder. Common errors. Here are some common mistakes. 1. Wrong path. Example. New ClassPathResource data sample.txt. Usually, the correct path is new ClassPathResource data sample.txt. 2. File not placed in SRC main resources. If the file is stored elsewhere, Spring may not package it into the class path. 3. Using getFile in packaged jar. This may fail in production. 4. Typo in file name. Example, sample.txt versus sample.txt. Case sensitivity matters in many environments. 5. Forgetting folder structure. If the file is inside resources templates, you must include template/ in the path. Simple example with REST controller. Here is a basic Spring Boot example. Import org.springframework.core.io ClassPathResource. Import org.springframework.web.bin.annotation. Get mapping. Import org.springframework.web.bin.annotation.rest controller. Import java.nio.charset.standard.charsets. REST controller. Public class file controller. At get mapping read file. Public string read file. Throws exception. ClassPathResource is new ClassPathResource data sample txt. Bytes is resource.getInputStream.readAllBytes. Return new string bytes, standard charsets UTF-8. Example concept. HTTP request means controller reads ClassPath file, means returns content. This is a simple way to test file reading. Advantages of reading from resources folder. Advantages include: files are bundled with the application. Easy access through ClassPath. Works well for templates and static data. No external path dependency. Useful for deployment portability. Example concept. Resource inside app means predictable access across environments challenges. Some challenges include: understanding ClassPath paths, confusion between file system path and ClassPath path, packaged jar behavior, handling large files efficiently, choosing correct reading method. Example concept. Resources folder looks like files means, but runtime access is ClassPath based. This is where many beginners get confused. Concepts learned in this topic. By learning this topic, you understand what SRC main resources is, what ClassPath resources are, how to read files using ClassPath resource, how to use getResourceAsStream, why input stream is preferred, why getFile may fail in jar packaging, how Spring Boot accesses internal application files. This gives you an important practical Spring Boot skill. Simple definition. Read file from resources folder in Spring Boot. The process of loading and reading a file stored inside SRC main resources using the class path, usually through an input stream. Final summary. Reading a file from the resources folder in Spring Boot means accessing files packaged inside your application. These files are usually stored in SRC main resources and become available as ClassPath resources when the application runs. The safest and most common way to read them is by using ClassPathResource, ResourceLoader, @value, getResourceAsStream. The key idea is that resource files should usually be read through an input stream, not as a normal file, because packaged Spring Boot applications often run from a jar. Once you understand this topic, you can confidently read templates, JSON files, text files, CSV files, and other internal resources in Spring Boot applications.